The town that isn't on any map. I should have turned around the second my GPS lost signal. That's usually the first red flag, right? But no, I was too proud, too stubborn, and way too sure of myself. A weekend hiking trip in the mountains, a chance to clear my head after the breakup, and the promise of some honest silence far from the city. It sounded like exactly what I needed. So I kept going. The rental car's tank was nearly full. I had supplies, a printed map I barely glanced at. Everything felt manageable until it wasn't. I was about 2 hours off the main highway, following a narrow road that twisted through thick woods. Pines pressed in from both sides like closing fingers. The air felt heavier the farther I went, and the silence, it stopped being peaceful. It became expectant, like the forest was waiting. That's when I passed the sign. It was weathered, half-rotted wood, nailed crooked to a post. Welcome to Dagger Creek, no population listed. No county, no sign of any recent maintenance. I hadn't seen Dagger Creek on any of my maps, digital or otherwise. Curious, I slowed down. A little detour, I thought. Maybe grab a bite, refill my water, stretch my legs. I'd be back on the trail before sundown. That was my second mistake. The town looked more like a ghost of one. Cracked sidewalks, buildings with boarded windows, rusted out pickup trucks on cinder blocks, not a single person on the street. But I saw lights, just barely. Flickering orange from a gas station up ahead. Its sign buzzed erratically. I pulled in, and that's when I noticed the mirrors. Every window, every door, even the gas station's walls covered in mirrors. Cracked, foggy, warped, but mirrors. They were everywhere, hung like they were protecting something, or maybe keeping something in. I stepped out of the car and immediately felt it. The silence wasn't just silence, it was like listening. I walked up to the gas station, and the closer I got, the more I noticed how off the mirrors were. They didn't reflect me properly, like I was there, but my movements lagged behind like a video buffering. And sometimes, I swear I saw my reflection blink when I didn't, tilt its head slightly after I'd turned away. It was like watching myself dream, and I hated it. Still, I needed answers, or maybe just a person, anyone. I stepped inside. The air was thick. Not hot, just dense, like it had weight. The whole place smelled like wet copper and dust. A single old man sat behind the counter. His eyes were cloudy, like he'd been staring at something too long. "You lost?" he rasped, not looking at me. Maybe. I was headed for the North Ridge Trail, but my GPS died. Figured I'd stop in, get my bearings. He didn't answer right away, just tapped a long, yellowed finger on the counter. "You shouldn't be here." That was all he said. I laughed nervously. "Okay, but I'm here, so how do I get out?" The man slowly pointed behind me to a mirror on the far wall. Not to the door, to the mirror. "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked. His mouth opened like he was going to answer, but he just froze. His eyes widened slightly. Then he whispered something I couldn't hear and slumped forward like a puppet with its strings cut. I rushed over, panic rising. I shook him. Nothing. He was still breathing, barely, but his eyes were rolled back, like he'd seen something that fried his brain. I backed away fast. And that's when I noticed something in the mirror behind me. At first I thought it was me, but no, it was someone else. A shape in the reflection, standing where I was, dressed like me, same hair, same clothes, but the face, it wasn't mine. Its eyes were black pits, and it was smiling. I spun around. There was no one behind me, but when I looked back at the mirror, the figure was still there, watching me, grinning with those sunken, hollow eyes. It lifted its hand. So did mine, a second later. Like I was copying it. I bolted out of the gas station. The air outside had changed. It was heavier now. Frack the light dimmer, even though the sun was still up. I could hear whispers, barely audible, like they were inside my ears, not around me. I jumped in my car and locked the doors. Key in. Engine. Dead. The battery wasn't even clicking. I tried again. Nothing. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. That's when I saw them. Children. 4 of them, standing at the edge of the tree line across the road. Still. Silent. Each one holding a broken mirror. Their heads tilted in unison. Slow, unnatural, like puppets. One of them lifted her hand and pointed, not at me, but at the gas station behind me. I turned. The man was gone. But the figure in the mirror was now in the window. It wasn't smiling anymore. Its mouth was wide open, too wide, like it had no bones left in its face. And from that gaping mouth came a sound that hit me in my chest, a low, bass-heavy hum that made my teeth ache. Then everything went black. Not like fainting, more like being yanked out of myself. I don't know how long I was out. When I came to, I wasn't in the car. I was lying in the middle of the road just outside the gas station. The car was gone. No skid marks, no tracks, just gone. The children were still there, but they were closer now, too close, standing in a perfect semicircle around me. Their eyes, glassy, like they weren't children anymore. One of them, maybe 8 years old, with a cracked porcelain mask, stepped forward and said, "You look too long. Now it remembers you." I scrambled up and ran. Didn't think, didn't look back. Just ran. The woods swallowed me fast. I don't even remember choosing a direction. I just followed the gaps between the trees, breath burning in my chest until I couldn't hear the hum anymore. But the silence was worse, because now I could hear my footsteps echoed, just a split second too late, like something was following me, copying me. And then in the distance, I heard someone shout my name, my own voice, calling for help. I froze. Hearing your own voice screaming your name from somewhere deep in the woods is not something you can rationalize. It wasn't an echo. It was exact. Every inflection, every panic-shredded syllable. Help, somebody, please. Me, calling for help. But I wasn't screaming. I was whispering what the fuck under my breath over and over like it was a prayer. And then it laughed. I laughed from the trees, a twisted, rasping version of my voice. Broken, unstable, too close. I ran, branches whipped my arms and face. My legs burned, my lungs screamed. The woods didn't make sense anymore. The trees were too close together in some places, then suddenly too far apart. It felt like they were moving. The whispering came back. Only now it wasn't words, just sounds. Clicking, scratching like fingernails on wet glass. No direction, no source. And then up ahead, I saw it. A house. 2 stories, crooked porch, collapsing roof. It looked abandoned, but the windows were lit with a dull orange glow, like candlelight. Like someone was home. Against every instinct I had left, I ran toward it. I needed shelter. I needed walls. The door wasn't locked. It swung open with a groan like it had been waiting. Inside was worse. The walls were lined, covered with mirrors. Every size, every shape, antique, modern, shattered. Some were draped with cloth, others wide open. And they were alive. Not physically moving, but breathing. I swear to God, they were breathing. Fogging and unfogging like lungs. I stepped inside, and every mirror reacted, just slightly, like I disturbed them, and then I saw myself. Not my reflection. Myself. Standing in the hallway mirror. He looked terrified, bleeding from the nose, bruises on his neck. He was mouthing something silently. I leaned in. He mouthed it again. "Don't look behind you." I didn't listen. I turned. Nothing there. When I looked back, the mirror was empty. My reflection was gone. I stumbled backward into a room that looked like a dining room, except it wasn't. The furniture had been arranged into a perfect circle, all facing inward. In the center, a pile of shoes, dozens of them. Child-sized, adult-sized, all dirty, all worn. There were names scratched into the wood floor beneath them. Dozens of names. Then I saw mine, carved at the very bottom. Not freshly either. A knock sounded behind me. Then another. Soft, rhythmic. Knock, 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 knock. I turned toward the nearest mirror. Something was tapping from the inside. I took a step back, heart jackhammering in my chest. From the corner of my eye, I saw movement. The hallway mirror, the one I'd seen myself in, was now leaking something. Black, viscous, like tar. It oozed down the glass in thick trails, and from within the dark, fingers began to press through. Thin, skeletal, too many knuckles. A shape emerged, hunched, twitching, wrong. Its limbs folded the wrong way, like it didn't understand how to be human. It had a face like mine, but with a mouth that stretched open too wide, showing teeth like glass shards, and it began crawling out of the mirror. That's when the lights went out. I don't remember screaming, but my throat was raw. I ran upstairs. The house didn't make sense anymore. Every hallway twisted. Doors opened into the same room again and again. The mirrors were multiplying. On the floor, on the ceiling, on the inside of the doors. I couldn't close my eyes without seeing my own reflection doing things I wasn't. Then, I found the attic. No mirrors up there, just photos. Hundreds of Polaroids pinned to the walls, all showing different people standing in front of mirrors, smiling, sometimes crying, sometimes disappearing. Some of them were scratched out violently, but not all. I found mine. It was recent. It showed me standing outside the gas station, not taken from a camera, taken from my inside a mirror. I looked down and saw a stack of blank Polaroids on the floor. The top one started developing on its own. I watched in real time as a mirror formed in the center of the picture. Then a figure, then a face, not mine. The photo finished developing in my hands. The figure in it wasn't me, but it was wearing me. It had my face, but the mouth was open, its jaw unhinged. The eyes were wide and black, like burned out holes. Behind it was a mirror, just like the one in the hallway downstairs. And as I stared, something clicked. The photo was real time. I looked up. The attic had no mirrors, but the wall in front of me now had one. It hadn't been there before, I swear to you, and the figure was standing inside it, motionless, watching me, waiting. Then it reached through. Its hand came out first, skin like cracked ceramic. The glass didn't shatter, it rippled like water. Like the mirror was a door and someone had finally opened it. It stepped through. My knees gave out. It was me, but emptier. Like it had hollowed me out and only worn what was left. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. My own face stared at me, inches away. Then it leaned in and whispered in my ear, "Now there's room for you." It placed its hand on my chest. I couldn't breathe. My body began to pull, not physically, but like my soul was being dragged toward the mirror. My reflection, the real one, snapped back into place across the room. It was screaming, trapped behind the glass. It wasn't trying to get out. It was trying to warn me. But it was too late. The thing smiled again and shoved me into the mirror. I woke up in a field. Same clothes, same scratches, no phone, no car, no mirrors. Everything felt off, too quiet, too still. The trees whispered, but nothing else moved. I started walking, not knowing where I was, until I found a road, a sign. "Welcome to Dagger Creek." I was back, except this time the buildings weren't broken. They were clean, perfect, bright even. Like it was a normal small town on a summer morning. People were walking around, smiling, waving at me, but their eyes, they were all wrong. Dead, glossy, too wide, like they were masks with nothing behind them. And every single window and car mirror and storefront reflection, it still showed me, just wrong, a second slower, and always smiling. It's been 3 days, or 3 months. Time doesn't move here like it used to. I still look like me, I eat, I sleep, I function, but every time I catch my reflection in a window or a spoon or a puddle, I see it. That version of me. Watching, waiting, smiling. And now I understand. This town doesn't show up on maps because it isn't a place, it's a trap. A mirror that keeps what it copies and sends the other version back into the world. I don't know what is walking around out there wearing my face. But if you've ever felt like your reflection doesn't match your thoughts, like something behind your eyes isn't you. If you've ever seen yourself in a mirror long enough that your face feels unfamiliar, just remember, somewhere, something might be watching you back and smiling. Enjoy the background music and calm yourself. Let the soft piano and gentle strings guide your thoughts. Feel each note wash over you like waves of peace. Close your eyes if you wish. Breathe in, breathe out. You are safe, you are still, you are here. Let go of the noise, let the silence within you grow. Enjoy the background music and calm yourself.